it's very difficult to believe that the Minister for Finance had no objection to this sale and facilitated the betrayal of vulnerable Irish customers. And I think what's particularly interesting about today is the fact that many times the banks have come in here and it's been stated, well, we can't let people off without paying their mortgages, because the other people are responsible and they pay their mortgages and others are just basically not bothering to pay their mortgages. But the thousands of customers that we are here and citizens that we are here to talk about today are all people who have made the very best possible efforts to pay their mortgages and have come to arrangements with the bank, whether it be split mortgages or other arrangements. So these are responsible citizens who want to pay their fair share and keep their homes at the same time. So they're looking at this from a couple of different perspectives, and what they want is they want to be able to trust who has the deeds to their homes. They want certainty and they want security. So maybe just a couple of things to try and establish some of that. The first thing is I just want to come back to the tax situation and the Section 110. Pepper have, 10 billion assets in Ireland as it is now?
So for residential mortgage loans, yes. Before the Glenbeigh transaction, we have 50,000 loans, so 64,000 overall. 50,000 of those are effectively mortgages secured against property. Post the Glenbeigh transaction, the value of those loans that we'll manage and administrate and service on a day-to-day basis will be approximately 10 billion euros.
And how much tax did you pay last year, leaving aside the income tax from your employees?
So I don't have the exact numbers. I might defer to my finance director, but what I will say is, and again, just to clarify, in terms of our role, we're effectively in this and with some of the other clients that we have, a service provider. We provide us services, we take a fee. These assets and the 10 billion of loans I mentioned are not in our balance sheet. The Glenbeigh loans, the 6,000 loans within the Glenbeigh security vehicle, we do not have an economic interest in that vehicle.
So they have the economic interest, and have we a way of knowing how much tax they paid? I think it's just, I'm just trying to tease out, but see, all of these thousands of customers that we're dealing with here, they all pay tax. They all pay a lot of tax every year. And they would want to know that the people that they were paying their mortgage to also paid a fair share of tax. So I'm just trying to establish.
Yeah, so I can confirm from a Pepper point of view, we are absolutely tax compliant. We're registered.
Well, I would think that you would in being regulated and all that, yes. But I'm just trying to get at a figure of how much. So an entity that has 10 billion of assets, how much tax do you pay in a year?
Well, the tax could be confirmed by looking at the accounts of each one of these SPVs. I wouldn't know myself because, as Cormac has mentioned, they're not part of the Pepper Group. We don't consolidate these vehicles. We are an agent of them. We have a contractual relationship with them, but we're not responsible for their taxable basis or their compliance.
Yeah, and you see, this is the problem, you see, for the community, the consumers at the end of this food chain is who's what and who's where and who's responsible for this and who's making the money out of it. And you've had a write down of what in the loans of half a billion.
Maybe I'll try and correct. I think you're talking to the wrong people here, right? Glenbeigh is a special purpose vehicle.
But they would.
Pepper is the servicer.
Yes.
They are tax compliant. Permanent TSB is a public limited company in Ireland.
I
within
understand
the rules that we are
Mr.
we are tax compliant. Now, the tax affairs of Glenbeigh or its investors, I don't think either of us.
Who we don't know, and this is the problem for consumers, is that we don't know. We have these people, fairy people out there who are benefiting from all of this, while we have these consumers who are at home and they're worried about their mortgages, they're worried about how this is going to pan out for them at the moment, will they be able to keep their homes and all this, and yet we have the beneficiaries of their mortgages that have been sold off by yourselves, and they don't know who they're dealing with. They really don't know who they're dealing with, because you're only the vehicle in the middle, if you like. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, again, just to clarify, your points, and just hopefully just to help answer the question, Senator. In terms of they're dealing with us, you're absolutely right. The economic interest of the loans, in terms of the actual asset value of those, is held separately in Glenbeigh Securities. That is separate to Pepper, and Pepper doesn't have an economic interest in the loans. But what I would say again is, just to try and explain it further, the people they're dealing with, there's a difference between ownership and kind of day-to-day management, decision-making and control.
I understand all that.
Yeah.
I do understand it, honestly. I do. Okay,
You
I want to
made,
get to a few... Okay.
You made two other observations in your opening remarks that I'd just like to respond to, please. So the first one is you used the word betrayal, and just for the record, I absolutely don't accept that phrase.
That's okay, but that's what consumers and customers are telling us, that they feel betrayed.
So
they feel betrayed.
You used the word...
And that is really important to acknowledge that.
You used the word betrayal, and as I have tried to explain to you, we try to find a way that the customers who had engaged with us could keep their long-term treatment and could be protected by the laws of the land, and we think we have achieved that. Secondly, you asked me again about the consultation with the Minister for Finance, and again I should repeat to you that it was a consultation where we followed the obligations that we have under the relationship framework, and they were followed to the letter of the law.
Except for the code of practice of the transfer of mortgages, as was specifically outlined.
And I
would have thought that that would be the first document you'd have on the table.
And I've just answered that question insofar as that code is voluntary. The overriding and governing document here is the loan facility letter. And as I tried to explain to you, we're trying to get as many moons aligned as we can, where one of those moons is, as a management team, as a chief executive, I have a bank that has a 16% NPL ratio, and that's not sustainable.
I understand that, and we met with the ECB, and the ECB explicitly told us they weren't putting pressure on the selling off of loans. They too appeared to be concerned about what was happening. It wasn't to work through these loans. These loans are performing loans as far as we're concerned, in being split mortgages with people improving their circumstances and meeting their obligations. They are not reckless people. They are not reckless in the way that the banks in this country have been. These are responsible citizens who are trying to hold the roof of their homes over their heads for them and their children, and that is the bottom line, and they're the people we're here to represent. I want to ask you a couple of questions around, like, you see, they will find it difficult in dealing with Pepper. They looked at all of the banks when they were taking out their mortgages. They looked at the bank that they thought would most service their needs, and that they made the decision it was PTSB. Now they find themselves with an operation that's operating in Australia, Britain, Spain and South Korea. And they want to know, right, okay, how all of that is going to impact on them. First of all, I'll just ask you a very simple question. Where are the deeds of their homes going to be held? The actual deeds.
The deeds of the homes will be something that will be managed and administered by Pepper. That's a standard.
Where will they be held? Where will they be physically held?
In different, for different arrangements, they're held in different places. I can just check.
I really want to know that.
They'll be held in Dublin with our standard provider.
They'll be held in Dublin?
Yes.
Okay, where in Dublin did you say?
I don't have the exact location. Okay. I haven't got the exact location. We have a third-party supplier whose name I prefer not to use, but we use them all the time. That's where their deeds are held.
You see, I think it's very important that people know exactly where the deeds are going to be held.
I can come back, Senator, with the details of that.
They also want to know if they've had a review with PTSB, say, in the last 3 months, okay, and they would have 3 yearly reviews. That would be the norm in PTSB. Are they going to have a review with yourselves within that period of time? Or are you going to wait until the 3 years is up and have a review at that point?
The answer to that, if that's directed at myself, Senator, is it depends. I'd go back to the contracts. The contracts, in some cases, say at least triannually, so that doesn't mean every 3 years, it means at least triannually. Other contracts, it's open. To go back to your example, if someone has been reviewed in the past 3 months, they're unlikely to be first on the list. I
Okay,
think,
but you see, if we're saying that, this is what I want to get straight, if we're saying that everything is going to be the same, so people who got letters in the last few days are saying everything is going to continue the same, and straight away we're saying that everything up to now has been reviews every 3 years, and straight away we're saying, okay, now the reviews may change, so you may have a review in 6 months' time again. So it's not the same, you know what I'm saying?
There's no specific review time period. We chose 3 years. And indeed, I would assert that I would probably have instructed my team as the mortgages got nearer to their maturity to actually increase the frequency of those reviews. Why? Because that reduces the likelihood of a poor customer outcome. Because those warehouses and those bullets are due. So there's no specific time period per se. And I think I suppose the point I'm making, and I'll let Cormac obviously comment from Pep's point, the point I'm making is that I actually feel those reviews are a positive conversation, because those warehouses are material amounts of capital and that they are due. And to have a conversation with a customer to try and help them move the warehouse or the bullet into the main mortgage and therefore reduce the risk of maturity is a good thing. And so that would be the bank's perspective.
Can you understand, Mr. Masding, can you understand the fear,
I can understand.
The fear that people have right now? The
I
fear that people have around their homes and what might happen into the future when they're dealing with an unknown entity who we don't know is profiting from it at the end of the day. We don't know how much tax he pays, or whether it's a she. I'd imagine it's a he. But so that's the fear. It's the fear of the unknown that's there at the moment that we're trying to get to the bottom.
I absolutely understand that, because let's cut to the chase. These customers engage with permanent TSB. They engaged with permanent TSB.
They trusted PTSB.
And they had a conversation with us that led to a long-term treatment. So of course I can understand that. I think, to be frank with you, that was the reason that we volunteered to come here, because we wanted to do our best to assure those customers that the structure we put in place allows them to continue with the treatment and to have the protection.
I appreciate that. And so we're all on the same side, we're all on the same page in relation to that, because I'm trying to do the very same thing. So when we look at, and you know, I like your statement in terms of Pepper, we look at the person, not just the paperwork, which is really good on the face of it. So I want to reconcile that with Pepper's failure to pass on a single cent of rate cuts for the variable rate mortgages over a 5-year period. So just reconcile those two for me. So the ECB rates, obviously, the ECB rates were cut and all of that, yet Pepper did not pass on any of that to the mortgage holders.
Okay. To answer the question, I think, firstly, Pepper run portfolios for various different clients. So we currently have 50,000 mortgages. Every single portfolio will be different. Ultimately, what a customer is entitled to and their rights are protected by the terms and conditions of their contract. I am talking about something which I think is many years ago. Fortunately, we've been in a very low and zero interest rate environment for a number of years. So I'm assuming the case
2012 to 2017, that was the 5-year period, was it?
So in terms of the customers, I understand the customers were all on standard variable rates.
Yes.
Standard variable rates are different to tracker rates. Tracker rates absolutely by law need to move up and down. Again, as a point before my time, my understanding is it was standard variable rates. Standard variable rates, be they with any bank in Ireland or outside of Ireland, the ultimate decision in terms of the rate to be passed on to the customer sits with the bank or the legal title holder. There is no obligation.
So would that sit with yourselves then in this case? Would it have sat with Pepper himself?
So
Pepper would be to make that decision of whether we're going to pass this on to the customer or we're not.
So if we talk about lend-based securities, when all of these mortgage loans come across, ultimately it will be Pepper. And again, the prospectus is clear that Pepper will be making decisions on the standard or variable rates, and they're quite a big proportion of the book, both on the splits and on the par capital interest. There are many factors, like any other financial institution, that go into the SVR, but there absolutely will be an ability, if ECB rates go up, like every other
No,
financial...
I know we're talking into the future, but you didn't really address my question in terms of trust and in terms of how you can reconcile. We look at the person, not the paperwork. Do you think it was fair not to pass on? See, what I'm trying to get at is, you're obviously an organisation, a company, and your aim is profit maximisation. I get that. That's how the world operates. But so therefore, you would do something like not passing on the interest rates. So how can customers, based on that past record, even just that element of it, how can consumers, people who you have the deeds to their homes, trust you going into the future? Based on that, just explain why you might not have, over a 5-year period, thought, well, you know, we're making enough profit here, we're going to cut a break for our customers.
Yeah. Again, to answer the specific question, in terms of the case, that is on a specific portfolio, so it doesn't apply across the whole Pepper portfolio. I understand, and I will need to check, these customers were on standard variable rates, not on tracker rates. It's at the discretion of the holder. I also will need to check, and I'm happy to come back with the exact detail. My understanding is Pepper were not the sole decision maker, as we would not have been the beneficial owner in that circumstance. So it was on a single portfolio, not across all the portfolios that we manage. I need to clarify the exact decision making. Again, it was before my time, so I can't give you an exact answer. But I think more importantly, given we're here to talk about Glenbeigh, and what does that mean to the future of Glenbeigh, the difference here is in the future, and again, it was part of what I said in the opening statement, the setting of the standard variable rates will sit and has been delegated to the master servicer in this situation, which is Pepper. Pepper will have the ability to move rates up and move rates down. I can't give you, the future is the future, and many people have made mistakes in predicting interest rates. But what I can confirm to you is A, that's our capacity, and B, we will have the ability to move rates up and move rates down.
Yeah, I'm just trying to, I suppose, demonstrate that while we are told certain things here, then we have to look at a record, and in terms of the representation. I just want to, the tracker rate obviously goes without saying that anybody on a tracker rate will follow that through because you're legally obliged to do it. So there isn't a discretion on that. And I'll just finish with it. On the standard letter that you've sent out, PTSB, is that letter legally binding for people who have those letters that says that the terms and conditions will remain the same? Is it legally binding? Yourself. You sent out the letter, Mr. Masding, yeah?
The arrangement letter, or...?
The letter telling people that their mortgage was no longer with yourselves and that the terms and conditions will remain the same.
Yes, that's correct. In terms of the treatments, yes, that's correct.
It's legally binding?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. I'll leave it at that, Cahier.